In a national referendum, the agreement was backed by over 70% of those who voted.
71.12%.
The agreement isn't by any means a perfect document. It's something that the political parties here managed to reach some kind of understanding on a particular day, Good Friday of 1998. But they were trying to come up with something that would do. They weren't really able to come up with a perfect document.
Against a backdrop of such entrenched hatred on both sides, it was hard to expect that the Belfast Agreement could bring about a complete regulation of the conflict. But it has, without doubt, enabled the transition from armed conflict to political dialogue. However, as with any compromise-based solution, not all of the demands made by both sides were met.
You know, like 4 or 5 years ago, the street situation was much worse than it is now, and the level of violence was much worse than it is now. So, yeah, I think most people want the situation to continue like this, and gradually they hope that a lot of these negative feelings will wither away.
Joy Fulton Chalice defends the rights of imprisoned Protestants. She is herself a victim of the conflict. Her father was murdered, and she has been beaten up on several occasions.
I see that Sinn Féin IRA sat down 30 years ago and made a long-term plan with short-term objectives and set them out. And it was to rip us of our freedom, religious freedom, our culture and our whole identity.
Here is a Catholic view.
The reason why the peace process isn't working at the minute is because the unionists don't want it to work. They don't want equal rights for anyone here. They just want to run the country the way they have been allowed to. And they don't want peace where nationalists and Catholics are going to have equal rights with them. It's as simple as that, you know.
In this conflict, both Protestants and Catholics make a big point of the differences in their religious and cultural traditions. For the Catholic community, the focal point for preserving and expressing these values are the Irish cultural centres. Meanwhile, the traditional focal point for the Protestants are the Orange Lodges. This is where historical treasures are kept, meetings are held and parades are planned. The Orangemen consider the parades an important part of their traditions. There are around 3,000 in Northern Ireland every year, most of them in July. Such parades have been taking place for the last 200 years, but now, since the signing of the Belfast Peace Agreement, they have become even more important. Now, instead of armed conflict, there are arguments about whether or not the parades should be allowed. Reverend Ian Paisley is famous as the founder of the Democratic Unionist Party in the 1970s. We asked him for his views on the parades.
I believe that traditional marches, whether they be Republican or whether they be Orange, should be allowed to parade in Northern Ireland. I have marches in my area which is predominantly Protestant, and they would be predominantly Republican. But we don't close the roads. We believe in civil and religious liberty for all men.
That is not a logic that the Catholics agree with.
If you want to celebrate, then you want to do it in a place where you're comfortable, where you can enjoy yourself, and where nobody else is annoyed or offended or causing you trouble. And so what I believe is that parades and other demonstrations of culture should take place on a basis.
The parades often end in fighting between the two communities or clashes with the police. But not all Protestant parades end in trouble. Sometimes the police are there to maintain order. We witnessed one such parade, not in Northern Ireland, but in the Irish Republic, an entirely Catholic country. We didn't even notice that we'd crossed the border. It was at one of the stops along the way when we saw that the English signs had been replaced by ones written in Irish, and that the pound signs had been replaced by euros, that we realised that we were now in the Republic of Ireland. One Saturday in July every year, busloads of Orangemen pour across the border in their thousands to the village of Rosnola in the Irish Republic. The parade participants gather in a field near the village for a rehearsal. Some find the time to grab a hamburger before the serious business of the parade gets underway. It's no joke, demonstrating your patriotism outside the borders of the United Kingdom. Our hosts also invited us to another event while we were in the Republic, but this one was definitely nothing to do with the Orangemen. Thousands of Catholics from Northern Ireland had driven down in cars and buses to the town of Clones in order to link up with their fellow Catholics in the south. The Regional Gaelic Football Cup final is the perfect opportunity for them to express their Irishness. Gaelic football is the most popular sport among the Irish Catholics. The Protestants stopped playing it a long time ago. The fans are welcomed by a brass band. As the excitement builds up before the kick-off, one supporter comes up with an original way of expressing his feelings. First out onto the pitch is a team from Northern Ireland, and when the match begins, it's more like a national festival than a head-to-head between sporting rivals from two countries.
Delegation includes ministers for education and culture along.
Gaelic athletic sports are a great way of bonding people to particular localities right the whole way to at the national level, and people identify very much with the GAA as an Irish national organisation that expresses nationalism in a very positive way.
On the same day, there is an Orange March in Portadown. It is one of the most dramatic ever to take place during the conflict.
A police senior officer is like the manager.
Given that parades often aggravate relations between the two communities, there is a special parades commission in Belfast tasked with resolving the problems that they cause.
In this country, we are famous for our elections, where the people have a choice. This Parades Commission has not been elected. It's a quango. In other words, it's put in place by the government, and the only reason why the Parades Commission was put in place was to do away with the loyal institution parades. As simple as that, and take away our civil and religious liberty, which we've had for over 300 years, especially with this parade.